Tonight on Network Special, we take you into the dark underground of the satanic cabal, the pedophile child care system, the serial killers possessed by Satan, for all in service of getting 10,000 souls when they reach hell. What?
You're doing it, man. That was great.
Okay. Thank you.
Hail Satan. Woo!
Thank you. Welcome to Network Special. This is Nathan. I'm here with my co-host,
Colin.
And we are a podcast that talks about the golden age of appointment television, where when you wanted to watch TV specials, you had to tune in on the time that they aired.
Yeah.
Or you had to VHS tape it, record it. Now, through the magic of the internet, you can watch these things again and again.
What year did the VCR actually become like a commercial product, though? Because this special was, check my memory here, is 85? 1985 this came out?
This is 1988. So VHS is in full effect. Full effect, yeah.
Okay.
This special called Devil Worship, Exposing Satan's Underground. It was a 2-hour primetime special hosted by Geraldo Rivera.
The one and only Geraldo Rivera. Hell of a guy.
Geraldo Rivera.
Not such a great journalist, but I'm sure he's a solid guy, I guess, or something.
No.
I know. As soon as I said that, I'm like, wait a second. I know for a fact he's a terrible person.
So we've done one of his specials before, and it was his first big special, the mystery of Al Capone's vault. The mystery of Al Capone's vault.
Just a 2-hour wet fart on national television. Just a terrible, terrible embarrassment that he was
1986. But it got massive reviews, and despite its bad ending, false alarm ending.
You saying that, it makes it sound like it was good leading up to the end. Like the whole thing's terrible. It's terrible. You want to know my one memory? Like my one thing that makes me think of is I found out that special happened because as a kid, and I know you have this in common with me, I was a huge fan of the movie UHF. Uh-huh. And there's that scene in there where Weird Al is, there's a promo for his character's talk show.
Yes, where George Newman.
That's right, and it's like a Geraldo ripoff. And there's one part in it where he is exploring the mysteries of Al Capone's glove compartment, and he breaks open road maps. And I didn't fully get that until my dad explained this is what this is making fun of. And I just remember my dad explaining it and me be like, oh, okay. I thought it was funny anyway, but
so that sketch, he's also making fun of this special.
Yes,
in a sense, and really, actually, you know what? He's making fun of this and another episode where he gets into a fight with the KKK or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Geraldo in real life, didn't he get hit by a chair in the face or something like that and broke his nose or something?
Yeah.
Well deserved.
So this was this show started in 1987, and in 1988. I think what did you say? You said 86?
I said 85, so I was way off.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he wasn't even around, at least for this kind of stuff. He was still kind of a well-respected person then. So 1988, he does this special where it's kind of like one of the moments in a certain time period in the 80s that kind of propelled a massive movement, which is dubbed now as the Satanic Panic.
Yeah, weird.
And this is one of my favorite subjects in the world.
Interesting.
Because when I grew up, I used to go to very conservative churches that all very much scared us to death about Satanism and its effect and potential to harm us through cartoons that we watched.
Seriously?
Through the there was a guy who came to our church and told our parents to throw away all of our He-Man toys, and so I lost all my He-Man toys.
What's the fear with He-Man that he's like? Is it just too homoerotic?
He says he's the savior of the universe, and that's not true. It's Jesus.
Yeah.
But there's other things too. I'm sure there was a wizard, and he went on about the Smurfs. This guy, there's there's all kinds of stuff that I'd love to devote an entire podcast to with all this stuff. But so this was one of these movements, one of these moments in time where the world was absolutely gripped with fear that Satanists were taking over. And there's a lot of damage that was done through this. There's lots of people who are still kind of in jail or have records because they were accused of Satanist rituals that there's no evidence to have proven any of these things. And then here we have devil worship exposing Satan's underground, which is just 2 hours of Geraldo just again, it's almost like the some couple of things that we've watched, like the Alien special, where it was all about this guy had a video of an alien autopsy.
Sure.
And it's all like, if everything about it's like, if these claims are true, these are crazy claims. This is the most impactful thing we've ever heard.
A lot of heavy emphasis on the if. Wait, I want to go back for a second. Like, did you did the church that you grew up going to, was it like did people ever speak in tongues and get was it one of the, and did they get the thing where the priest, pastor, whoever it was, did they put the hand on the forehead and the person starts convulsing? Please tell me you got to witness that in person.
Yes, I did.
Are you serious? You're kidding me.
No.
Oh my God. No pun intended. That's fantastic. Tell me about that. Did it happen to you?
No. No. It's what you see is what you get. It's, I never fully believed in that part of it, I had friends who, swore to its feelings.
They swore they had that experience?
Yeah,
No.
I wouldn't argue with, everyone has their own.
Oh my God. I would be so excited to argue with that. I think that's the difference between you and I, but.
No. I mean, if someone personally felt they experienced something like that, I can just say to them, oh, okay. I can't say you liar. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
It feels like the same thing when you see a magician, or not a magician, a hypnotist who gets all those people. It just feels like a power of suggestion, really.
Totally
takes in the crowd, the group hive mind kind of takes over. And you see people just completely become detached from their own sense of logic. I don't want to be a total jerk, but that's just always the way it has seemed to me.
No, it's just emotions, It's emotions, and Christians believe that it's God, doing that, and I could take that or leave that. I think sometimes. I could take that or leave that. I am still a Christian, but I don't necessarily get into that aspect of the religion as much as other people in America like to do.
That's a fun part of it, though. that would be what I would look forward to. I'd leave church every week. If we hadn't done the speaking in tongues, I would have felt like we got cheated this week. We didn't get the full show.
Well, here. I'm not going to dive deep into that aspect of it, only because it's not part of this thing. But no, we definitely grew up believing that Satan was behind everything going on bad in the world, and not the people doing these bad things.
Like it wasn't their fault. They're like
but the truth is
consumed
there
by...
wasn't in the Satanic Panic stuff. The people weren't even doing these things.
Yeah,
now
it's
there are
insane.
people who have done things in, quote unquote Satan's name. Like he talks to some of these people in this special that are in jail and they have murdered someone and they claim that Satan convinced them to do this or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but the real problem, the real part that isn't true, is that there is a massive worldwide connected cabal of Satanists. All, if you've ever met like a Satanist, like a person who like says they're a Satanist, it's like a troll. It's like a troll religion. Like they're just like they like to have parties and then like make fun of Christians. Like
even when I hear the Church of Satanism, like they'll get like brought up sometimes, like now about like they'll comment on things or they have a Twitter account or whatever. And anytime I hear them getting mentioned, it's never like they're never talking about Satan. They're just kind of like, it always feels like they're just like taking a really hyper rational like approach to things. Like they're trying to come across like level-headed and intelligent, or I'm like,
well, I think
so they're not in there like talking about like, oh, we're gonna burn potions in the woods and like
it's very much a kind of libertarian kind of movement, which is just as useful to me as Satanism is or whatever. But there is like a difference between the Church of Satan and like Satanic. There's all these different like little things, but the main big one that you hear about most times is they're just like free speech advocates for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there's a classic exchange like on Twitter, like there's some like a Satanist will say like, we're atheists, we don't believe in Satan. And then a Christian will go, if you guys don't believe in Satan, who does? And then they reply, well, you do.
Christians
do, yeah. So it's but
do you, Nathan? Do you believe in Satan? Did I take this to a bad place by asking you that?
No, I actually don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I'm not convinced that it matters.
That's fair too. But okay, so here's my issue with this this special, and I think that's using the word liberally because there's not a lot special about this.
This is very special.
You think so? Maybe, yeah, in the worst senses of the word. But he like Geraldo hops around like a 4-year-old, and when I say hop, I don't mean literally hops. That would have been fun to watch, but like he jumps from subject to subject and person to person and story to story the whole time. Like a 4-year-old with ADHD, and he'll start talking about something, he'll stumble onto something like every once in a while, something sort of interesting where you'll go, oh, I kind of want to hear more about that, and then he'll like immediately change the subject to like a totally different thing. Did you notice that?
This is his tactic, is that he has to keep these specials are in a sense live, right? I mean, I think this is live. This was live, right? Like
I couldn't tell if it was or not. Like obviously the cutaway taped pieces, but like he had that whole like studio.
It's live in the sense that the people he's interviewing are sitting there, waiting for them to be questioned.
Yeah.
Like so, if the whole thing was taped, it's fine. But it is like he's just in a constant state of moving this thing along. So like if someone starts to talk for more than 10 seconds, he's like, that's too much dead time. That isn't the show moving forward.
Yeah, and
so,
he has
he's always cutting people off. He's not letting them answer the questions, like especially if it's not the kind of answer he's hoping for.
Yeah, if they don't like cut right to something super juicy right away, like they want to have some level of like subtlety or context, anything, he's just like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah.
And he has people
like,
that
if you talk to the people, like I've read tons about this, and the people who took place, like he has some people on that are Satanists who they are being interviewed, as like kind of the Satanist side of the story. But every time that they said that, like they were in a constant state of just being shut down and always cut off. And they kind of realized early on, like, oh no, like this is not what we hoped it would be.
Yeah, and he has people in the studio that are like actually sitting there in the studio, and these people have traveled from God knows where to come in to be on this thing with the expectation, I think, that they're gonna like, here's my side of it, and here's why, like, what, and they are just like summarily just like railroaded and like shut down immediately as soon as they start talking. He also has Ozzy Osbourne like live via satellite, and Ozzy, if you think Ozzy Osbourne was like confused by things in the Osbournes like 10 years later after this or more maybe, I mean, he's like, what the hell? Like, you can just see the thoughts going through his head. Like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why? What are we even talking about right now?
It's like, Ozzy, do you feel some responsibility for the deaths of these these satanic rituals? No, man. I just play music, man. I don't know.
And he starts like talking at one point about like, you know, my childhood, I came from nothing. And he starts trying to like tell like, again, context, like, here's some like interesting thing about how I ended up here. And Geraldo's like, no.
What about this Satanism, Ozzy? What about the Satanism? Who cares about your childhood?
Yeah, no level.
He doesn't. What's great is he performs these. Okay, he performs these interviews with Ozzy and with other people from this live circuit, these circuit TVs, like live during the show, right? So instead of pre-taping these, when he can really get really great interviews and stuff, he has them just sitting. There's like there's a wall of TVs. And every person being interviewed, like from circuit, like not in the studio, is just sitting on these TVs, just watching the same show. And I don't know if they're actually watching the show or if they're just sitting there waiting for someone to call on them. You know, like, I mean, they must be, because they're not like, you know, drinking and talking, and they're just looking straight ahead. So they must also be watching the same thing.
Yeah, and they're just. And it's great. They just look like what the hell is happening right now?
I think like Ozzy's background is like the London Bridge or something. Like, you know, they just have in some studio and they got some England like somewhere.
PA, like just put something Londonish behind it. Like, you know, it's just like the most general, like stereotypical thing. He was probably sitting in like against a white wall, and that was probably like, you know, green screened in or something.
Pull down the London curtain.
That's right. That's right.
And they've got like, there's like some people on death row, I think, who are being interviewed as well. And these are people who said that they've killed someone. And there is a great interview with one of them where the guy says, so he makes this claim that one of the reasons why he did this murder in the name of Satan is because Satan promised him 10,000 souls. and it's this guy, his name's Charles Gervais, and he's patched him from a Louisiana prison. And Gervais told the court, this is part of the fun, right? Is that what's really happening is there's a tiny wrinkle of Satanism somewhere in these things, but it's really just maybe someone found out that they were listening to Slayer or something.
Well, the thing
or just let me just they're just Slayer, or maybe they're just like maybe they did say that like at one point in the interrogation, but really like everything else comes out. But what Geraldo does is he ignores the 95% of the case and the situation, and he zeroes in on that 5%. So like in this case, it's like the Gervais told the court that he and this other guy, Michael Phillips, murdered Andre Daigle simply to prove that they could. Was like, that is the main thing. But Rivera just zeroes in on this tiny thing where the guy said, "Oh yeah, I committed the murder to acquire 10,000 souls." He's like, "Did you really think they were going to give you 10,000 souls, this devil?" And then the Gervais is kind of stumbling and he goes, "Get to the point. Get to the point, Charlie. What about these 10,000 souls, Buster?"
He calls him Buster. Hey, Buster Brown, let's talk about these souls you're hoping to.
Yeah, do you have this clip? Can you play this clip?
I do. Yeah, hang on. Let me get it queued up here.
Yeah, yes. Go continue while you're queuing it up.
Well, okay. So the thing that struck me about like the killer people is just like, okay, there's one of two things happening in my opinion. either they're saying that like they were inspired by Satan so that they can just like pretend that they're insane. So they're either that,
definitely,
or they actually are just like they actually do just have like complete mental illness. I don't know if I'm not qualified to say what that would be, schizophrenia, whatever it is.
Sure.
And like either way, it's not that they probably are genuinely like believing in or loving Satan or any of that. It's just like. But you're right. Like the 10,000, as soon as he grasps onto something that's salacious, he's just like, the other thing that he says is this. He has this quote. So I want this to play for you so you can just hear him say it.
Okay.
Why? Because it possessed power.
Where were you going to get this power? Where were you going to use this power?
In hell.
In hell. You're going to kill a person on earth to get the power of 10,000 souls in hell? Are you sick?
Are you sick?
I love asking someone who murdered a person in cold blood and is claiming he did it to, take control of the power of 10,000 souls in hell. I love the beautiful simplicity of saying, are you sick? Like it's the most nonsensical question of all time. Like, Geraldo, if we can't identify already from the evidence we have that he's pretty sick, then there's a big issue. And also there's like a sense from Geraldo, like he's going to like get through to this guy by being like, are you sick? Like the guy's going to be like, oh my God, you're right. Oh my God. I hadn't even thought about that. That was crazy that I did that.
Someone get me a doctor. Like every what's funny is like every clip of this, I'm kind of watching this as we talk about it, but it's like everything is like, whatever the case may be, Satanism is definitely on the rise among teenagers. Like everything's always like, no matter what the connection is, or even if this isn't true, we know that this is like.
He just makes these like these summary like statements like that where you're like, where he never at any point says like, this research institute or this university has studied this, or like there's nothing like that. There's no evidence. It's just like they're I'm trying to remember what he says at one point. It's something like kind of it's probably just exactly what you just said there is it's just these things that are like they feel like he's being specific and feel like he's like really stating something insightful, but really he's just being extremely vague and offering no evidence that what he's saying is true.
And he doesn't like he goes to like he'll go and he'll just meet some guy like and it's so funny. He sets up these interviews where he gets to show footage of himself like doing like what he thinks is considered like manly things. Like in the mafia one or the Al Capone one, he interviews this gun expert that lets him so that he gets to shoot a Tommy gun on the camera, And this one, he interviews this like Louisiana guy from the Bayou. So he's like, there's like footage of him like on an airboat with this guy, and then they just get to the scene's about, this trip probably took him, a couple of days worth of travel and stuff just to get all this stuff, and the clip's about 1 second long, and it's just the guy showing him a bone in the ground, going, this right here was a Satanist. Burn pit.
It's like not every single thing that is like sad or upsetting or has anything to do with death involves Satan. Okay, so I found one of these quotes. He's at one point he's talking about it's the segment where he's talking about satanic ritual abuse, which is kind of the whole thing. But
and that is by the way, the SRA, satanic ritual abuse. That is the big thing that is advanced in Satanic Panic, which is, and to this day actually with QAnon, it's research. It's made research.
Pizzagate, yeah.
But it's that there is a massive connected group of all people doing all this stuff who have and a lot of people believe that it happened to them because they went to the psychiatrist who would do like false memory,
implanting memories,
and what the funny thing is like everyone had the exact same experience, and it's all the same experience that all stems from like one thing that happened. Like someone wrote a book called Michelle Remembers, and it was a fake it was a fake like documentation of this girl's like abuse under this satanic stuff, but it turned out to all be false.
Like it wasn't publicized as, hey, this is fiction. It was like published as,
it was true.
Hey, this is something.
It was my account. It was my account, and then it turned out, you could the whole thing was like, fact checked, and it fell apart. But everyone who has had the same like claims that it happened to them, it's the exact same stuff that happened to her too. So it's like, So you're telling me there's a story that has been handed down?
Yeah, it's well, okay. So this is what he says about this Satan. What he says, now incest is certainly not new. Okay.
Yes.
And then he says, but more and more of it is taking on the dark overtones of Satan. And I'm like, what does that even freaking mean? What are you talking about? I'm like, more and more of it is like, what evidence do you have but also it sort of absolves like somebody who's
trying
like
to act like this is the heart, like this is worse. Like this is the like look, incest.
Like,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
What you gonna do about
That's
it?
as old as time itself. But this type of incest is no good because the Satan is in the room. It's like, what the hell? And it does on some level feel like it's like not absolving, but like sort of like giving a pass sort of to this person that's like committing incest, which is just horrifically awful. To say like, well, it's Satan doing it. It's like, no, it's that horrifically terrible, evil person doing it.
But also, the real truth is that 99% of these cases were not true, or there was not enough evidence to back them up, but people still went to jail over them. So in more likely, the incest didn't even happen.
Right. But the times that incest has happened, I have noticed that more and more of it is taking on the dark overtones of Satan.
That is true.
I'm just saying.
And
just put it out there.
By the way, I just want to say, there is he does have a priest come on the show. And his name is... Reverend James Lebar, okay, from the New York Archdiocese, right, a Catholic priest, and he starts to talk about the satanic, like Satanism on the rise, everything like that, and all of this kind of like stuff happening, this abuse happening, and I just was really curious about him,
God.
and I wondered.
Oh God! Oh no! Is this going where I think it's going?
There's no page on the internet that says, here are the accusations of what this man has done, what this Reverend James Lebar has done. But there are pages on all of the lawyer pages for people who are trying to get compensation for past abuses.
Yeah.
And his name is on the list. And it just basically says, like, we don't have a case against him, but he is considered someone who is eligible for anyone who has had any accusations. They are credible enough that you can get money back if you've been dealt by with this guy.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, this is like the perfect kind of thing that happened with this stuff. It's like, again, it's always this way. The people who are protesting the most oftentimes are the ones who are dealing with these issues themselves.
Yeah, every accusation is an admission of whatever that's the phrase they always say is. But like,
let me do one of my favorite quotes. Berkowitz, Lucas, Ramirez, and Manson are the all-stars in the halls of infamy.
The all-star, their first ballot Hall of Famers. I mean,
and then he shows the there's a segment on this serial killer named Bob Berdella, and it's like they show his business card, and it's just a normal business card, but it says his business card seems straight from hell.
The business card was straight from hell.
And it just says like, Bob Berdella, like plumber or something like that. It doesn't say anything stupid. It doesn't say like satanic serial killer at your service or something.
There's a moment in there where he's interviewing the police officer, And man, I'm really upset with myself because I can't remember exactly what the quote. I should have wrote it down. He says something like, officer or whatever. Now you're not a psychologist, but do you think? And then he asks like a very like a question that like only a psychologist would be like really like qualified to answer. It's like he says like just outright like, you're not qualified to answer this, but go ahead and answer because it'll be good for TV. It's like the most ridiculous thing.
Did you look at the audience at all? Like most people in the audience are just sitting there, kind of straight faced. But there are a few times where someone makes some like someone on that he's interviewing is like, babies were being sacrificed by aborted fetuses. I was a breeder. They bred my babies for sacrifices, and some guy in the audience is kind of like,
oh crap.
He's like, I don't know about that. Like, so let me tell you. So this is really interesting. So during one of the commercial breaks, one of the Satanists, Geraldo goes up to them and says, "Listen, try to limit your sentences towards not more than 2 syllables. We're dealing with an audience with a mental capacity of 13-year-olds here, and they won't be able to understand you if you start getting philosophical."
I mean, he's not wrong, because most of the people watching and or believing this were probably pretty stupid. I'm just going to say that.
What's also great about... Okay, so what's really funny about this is that this show was supposed to be kind of like a big deal. I think NBC bid for this, bid tons of money for this thing. Like some network bid a lot of money. I think let me double check on that, but they spent a lot of money for this special, and with the thought that we'll get tons of viewers just like he did for his other specials, and he's a pretty popular talk show host. And like when the sponsors got a hold of like what this is gonna be, like everyone's dropped out. They couldn't get a lot of advertisers. Like they lost tons of, like the station lost tons of money on this thing. Like I think Brandon Tartikoff it was one of the people in charge, and like he talks about how this is in hindsight. Maybe we shouldn't have run with this.
Perhaps, given the opportunity to do that again, maybe I would. No, so he has these these cutaway stories where he like travels to different places. So I wondered if like were those stories he had done like for other things, and they just like kind of added them into this. One example is like he interviews Charles Manson.
Yes. No.
That
is true.
One of the okay. Here's the disclaimer. Charles Manson was an awful person, and he did a bunch of stuff that he shouldn't have done. Okay. But he's really entertaining. I always have been like really entertained by him for some reason, because he's just
Sure.
like, if you had the greatest actor on earth and you said, okay, play like the most unhinged, like clearly psychotic person, I don't think the best actor on planet Earth could do, half as good a job as Charles Manson did. Just he's just. If you've never seen it, the clip where, have you ever seen the clip where somebody's interviewing Charles Manson and they ask him something like, who are you, or something like that, and he makes this like series of contorted, twisted facial expressions for like a little while. Like he just is like scrunching his face and bugging his eyes and like twisting his head and like just one after the other. And then after he gets done, he just leans into the guy and he says, I'm nobody. And it's like it's funny, but it's also just like disarmingly chilling. Like it's just like so nuts that it's like, oh my God, if I was interviewing that guy and he gave me that answer, I would have like peed in my pants pretty much. It's so the fact that they interviewed him in this is just funny because it doesn't provide any evidence again of anything. It's I like watching Charles Manson get interviewed.
Your suspicion was correct, by the way. It says like He did get an interview with Charles Manson for another primetime special called Murder Live from Death Row.
Okay. Yeah. So they just
And
revisit
so-
it in this, or he shows it again, basically.
Let's see. It says it was over 1 million people watched it, over 1 million households, and it opened a gateway to a week's worth of Geraldo programming.
Oh, thank
And
God.
this led to the 2-hour special scheduled. And it was on Halloween night.
This
And by the way,
aired on Halloween
there's-
night?
Yeah, there's so
Hey.
many great disclaimers in this where Geraldo's like, please, I am begging
Oh
you,
my God.
please do not let your kids watch
He
this.
really wants you to get your kids
then,
out of the
like,
room. He can't
later
stop
on-
saying it.
Later on, he goes, now I know every time you tell someone they shouldn't watch something, it probably has the opposite intended effect. But please, I implore you, do not let your children watch this next segment.
How many kids were like watching TV like their parents weren't around, and as soon as they saw those disclaimers, they're like, "Oh!" and they like sat and watched the whole thing.
Of course. So this thing kind of just bounces between interviews between people, a lot of people who are in prison who ended up becoming Christians and stuff like that, and their whole take is that this is all satanic, and so there's lots of agenda happening in this of people wanting to spread that this really is Satan doing all these things, and not really taking enough responsibility for what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And there's one guy. He's being interviewed with like a handler or something, or like I think a guy who like, his like pastor or something, and Geraldo asks him questions, and the guy takes over answering for him and stuff. And then he interviews these like random like people who are just like, yeah, I was I was a breeder.
It's a breeder.
Oh yeah, I gave birth to babies and they were aborted and then they were sacrificed. Yeah. Oh yeah. What were you saying again?
Do you think those were real people, or
Yes,
like,
they're real people.
Are
They're
they like
people who-
actors that were paid to say that crap, or what?
No, these are people who believed that this happened to them. Or these are people like the famous Christian comedian Mike Warnke, and they lied about it. They lied about it to, Mike Warnke like became a millionaire.
Hold on. You may be stretching the limits of the word famous.
No,
famous comedian.
In terms of the 80s, in terms of like this subset of like culture of like satanic panic culture, he was one of the people who, along with this kind of show, like these are the people who created this panic, like created this scare that damaged and destroyed lives.
So you think this was like definitely something that was like planned and sort of like intentionally created versus just being like a series of like societal whatever things that like kind of came together and sort of like snowballed on its own?
Well, okay, so when you look at I've done a lot of reading on this, but when you look at like the like right now when people look back on it, their kinds of theories on it are that this was like women were going into the workforce more, and there was more like, so there was a lot of backlash towards women not being home with their kids because they were having to send their kids to childcare and stuff.
Because they
So
evil.
yeah,
They's evil.
Yeah, so there's this like conservative backlash against that, and it and then it turns into like, one case happening, and then someone saying, "Oh, well, this is happening a lot," and then they start making money from making those kinds of claims because they become experts, and so they travel all the country being experts, and so they start building this massive
Wave of
complex
this, yeah.
like philosophy of why this is true and stuff, and and maybe they don't. Maybe they know they're exaggerating, but in their minds, it's good because it's pointing to something that's bad, even though it didn't happen. So like, it's just all compounding, and then there's guys like Geraldo who are just jumping on it. You know, he doesn't give two craps about this stuff.
Well,
He's
yeah.
just
Did
trying
this
to make a buck?
Did this special help create Satanic Panic, or did it get made because Satanic Panic was already going on, or it was already kind of building?
It was building, and this was part of that. Because he talks about the Mcmartin Trial, which was a huge moment in time for this, which was a child care, Mcmartin Child Care, I forget what they're called, but they're in Bakersfield, California, I think, in that area. And someone was falsely accused there of one of the kids was being satanic ritual abuse, and then all of these this psychiatrist would come in and interview other kids, and then those kids were being interrogated.
Suggest things.
Yes, and basically were being forced into these confessions. It's truly wild claims. These people lost their business. Everyone vandalized their homes, and then they actually end up winning their case because the claims were so wild and unsubstantiated. But they lost everything as a result.
Yeah,
but he mentions the Mcmartin Trial, and I don't remember if this is after they've gotten off or if the trial is still happening, but all this stuff is happening. He mentions Michelle Remembers, which was a huge moment. So all of these things he's just riding the wave, and he's, I don't know if I think he's at the midpoint era of it, but.
Well, so one thing I'll say obviously is people being accused. A lot of this special spends time talking about heavy metal and trying to draw this line that heavy metal is a big influence in getting people into Satanism and all that.
That's a huge component.
Yeah. So the 80s wasn't the first time musicians were accused of, being Satanists or being devil worshiper or whatever. And
no,
it still happens.
It happens now. Beyonce is accused.
Okay. So I put together a quick little quiz I just want to give you. So,
okay.
So if you are, if you're a Satanist or a devil worshiper, obviously that's one of the implications is you're having, you can have a terrible influence, and you can lead children in particular into lives of evil and sin and all that. So I have a list of people, musicians that I want to read them to you once, one at a time. And then I want you to tell me, we'll call this game author or Antichrist. So you have to tell me, are they somebody that has been accused of being a satanic person, or are they somebody that has authored a children's book?
Okay.
Or both.
Now that's the tough one.
That's the tough one. So, I mean, to me, if I was looking at these, I think a number of them, because you can kind of talk yourself into one direction or the other. So anybody listening to this, don't write in and say, hey, he didn't get, my uncle used to say that person was a Satanist. This is just stuff I could find Googling. It's possible that anybody on earth has been accused of being a Satanist, but this is in a notable or public way in some way. All right. So the first one is Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, what do you think? Where do you think he falls? Has he been accused a lot of being pro Antichrist or being a children's author? You were really mulling this over.
He's written a child's book, hasn't he?
I don't know. Is that your answer?
Yeah.
Yes, correct. He is written.
Okay.
I think he's written several books, but he's written at least one. I know that was for kids called Forever Young. Okay, good. Okay. So what about the Beatles?
They were accused of Antichrist.
Okay.
Oh, what you just said. The first one. What is the first option that I can choose?
Author or Antichrist?
Yeah, Antichrist.
All right. The answer to this one is actually both.
Okay. Well, I mean, the whole Beatles wrote a book.
Well, I'm in cases like this, I'm counting if people within. So at least 3 out of 4 of them have been credited with having written a book.
Well, I
children's book.
Guess that about any aging celebrity these days.
No, not the case. And notable about that is Ringo wrote a book called Octopus Garden. He can't let that. He cannot let that song go. What about Britney Spears?
Antichrist.
She has been. Yes, that's accurate. She has yet to grace us with a children's tome, and I have to continue hoping that doesn't ever happen. Yeah. One quote I wrote down from this: there was a terrorist who was quoted as saying that he would be the first one to cut the head off Britney Spears if she keeps spreading her satanic culture against Islam. So that'd be a crappy thing for somebody to say about you. So
he never got the chance, I guess.
Hasn't yet, no. And God willing, that he won't. How about Guns N' Roses? See, so you're having trouble with this one.
Someone in there wrote a kid's book, potentially. What it's slash, right? Like, my little guitar or something, or like the guitar who crossed the road or something.
The guitar that crossed the road. You need to write that, Nathan. That's your legacy, buddy.
I'm gonna say Antichrist. Or did Duff write a book?
I'm not sure he can even read.
The bottle who never cried.
So interesting. Okay, so I have author as the answer to this one.
Okay.
I'm sure Guns N' Roses probably has been accused of Satanism. So maybe the answer is both, probably. But there's also a book that interestingly is not credited as having been written by one particular. It's not like by Axl Rose. It's literally credited as by Guns N' Roses. Like it's called "Sweet Child of Mine," and I don't think it's just a recitation of the book, the song lyrics as a book. I don't know. All right, so I don't know. You want me to keep going? You want a few more?
Yeah, let's do a few more.
All right. How about Madonna?
Antichrist.
The answer to hers is both. She has written a children's book.
I don't like the both part.
You don't like that one?
I don't like that you could say both.
Why?
I don't know.
That's the case. It just shows how multifaceted these people are. She's been accused of satanic involvement or love or whatever by a lot of people. One quote I found, there was a priest in India that said that her upcoming concert, whenever he said this, there was a concert of hers coming up. He described it as an attack by the devil on our immaculate Catholic nation. So I can't argue with that.
Immaculate Catholic nation. That is an oxymoron.
All right, I'll do a couple easy ones. How about Led Zeppelin? This is a famous one, so you should get this. Yeah, so they were accused of. They were one of the people that is it called backmasking? Have you heard?
Yeah.
That like if you played their music backwards, there's a bunch of people they said this about, which is weird. I think they said it about the Beatles too. That if you play certain songs backwards,
this is like early movements in the Panic. Like before it was full on throwing people in jail.
Yes. All right. What about Anthony Kiedis, which I know I heard you and Zachariah on previous episodes. Maybe it was in particular him not having nice things to say about Anthony Kiedis, but I never remember you saying he was a Satanist.
No, I've never made that claim. I'm saying both. There's no way he didn't write a book called like Under the Bridge or something.
Called California something, whatever.
Yeah.
I found no evidence that he's written a book. But he has been tied to the satanic. You want to know why the main reason he was first tied to like being a Satanist? Do you know this?
Why?
1992 MTV Video Music Awards. They win one of the awards for the video for Under the Bridge. The song you just mentioned. And Anthony Kiedis stepped up to the mic and the first thing he said is, first of all, we'd like to thank Satan. So that made it easy for people to connect it. That made it easy.
Yeah. This is the kind of like, gosh, I was just reading about, can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Just say we'll end on Anthony Kiedis. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I had a couple more, but they were kind of easy.
I'm not gonna complete that thought. So let's pause and then we'll wrap it up I'll just wrap it up. Okay. Yeah. Good old AK-47, Anthony Kiedis. Always love to have him.
There's some
Always love
book
to talk
publisher
about him on
right
the
now
show.
that's looking for his information as they listen to this. Like, oh, untapped market. We need one of his books.
Yeah, it's going to be called...
California Rabbling, Dabble the Boom. That was pretty good. That
I
sounded
need some
just
time.
like him.
I need some time to come up with a good Anthony Kiedis child's cover, but I think Under the Bridge works. And it's about a troll who doesn't ever really want to feel that way.
Yep.
feel
Great.
like you did that.
Love
day.
that.
Thank you.
I feel like there's something you could do with blood, sugar, sex, magic. I just don't know what it is, but it just feels like there's some meat on that bone. Somehow. There you go. There you go. The sex comes in, but okay.
Please look this up online. This is amazing. It's fun to watch. Geraldo's a maniac. Knowing what we know about him today, this is just all like, the making of the myth of Geraldo Rivera. It's beautiful. And please know that none of the claims in this are true.
Yeah, none of them.
And please do some research on Satanic Panic, because it's an awesome subject that is so scary and upsetting, and another great moment in American history and in the world. By the way, the Satanic Panic struck the whole world with fear. So if you're in another country listening, I guarantee you there was a Satanic Panic in your nation during this time period.
Satan knows no borders.
now.
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
He's
right.
everywhere.
So if you're a fan of this, what we're doing right now, and how could you be? But please,
I think you meant to say, how could you not be? No, you said what you meant.
Said it right the
okay,
first time.
good.
Head on over to networkspecialpodcast.com, where you can sign up for all of our podcasting services, whatever one you like to use. We are on. And go to our Facebook, our Twitter, all that good stuff. That's TikTok. We're on TikTok. I don't know. I do this every time. I always fail to say what we're...
That's all right. People know.
Completely.
People know where to go. So...
Yeah. So... in your holy name, Colin. I don't know if you know this, but I am an actual ordained person because I do know this.
I can.
Every freaking guy thinks they're so cool because they went online
for 15 minutes, and I can do weddings now. So
they could do a wedding.
I'm about to do my third one, so shut your face.
Here we go.
Anyway, say your prayers tonight. Keep Satan at bay and
pray away to Satan,
and check in with us for the next episode.
In your name we pray. Amen.
God bless. Take care.
Bye.